In a previous video, we talked about how the abolishment of the Italian monarchy led to the downfall and exile of the Italian royal house, the House of Savoy. In addition to being exiled, this family has been at the center of several scandals and controversies. These series of misfortunes have cemented their loss of power and reaffirmed the permanence of their abolishment. We read your comments on our last Savoy video. In this episode, we will try to answer them as objectively as possible by mentioning all the Savoy's controversies, scandals, and conspiracies. The Savoy family has had its fair share of scandals, but that which led to the abolishment of the Italian monarchy deserves to be at the top of this list. After all, it was why a once powerful family was uprooted from its seat of power, and its members were doomed to be fugitives in a strange land. This scandal began when the King of Italy at the time, 𝗍𝐸𝐸 III, developed a suspicious relationship with Benito Mussolini, an Italian political extremist. To understand this story, let's go back several decades to the time of the First World War, about 14 years after Emanuele III ascended the throne. Under his reign, the Kingdom of Italy was a force to be reckoned with, and the country experienced tremendous military strength on a global scale. After the war, however, the country's economy went from stable to terrible, as is a known effect of war. This decline was uncomfortable for the Italian people, and so extremists began to rise in every corner. Most extremist political parties aimed to seize control of the government or take a portion of it for themselves. Italy was divided, and one man who was at the heart of this chaos was Benito Mussolini. He was very extreme and had his political party filled with like-minded extremists. Vittorio Emanuele III was aware of the existence of men like Mussolini. However, the fascist dictator was the one he was most worried about. The king established a political relationship with the 5'7" dictator to keep a man so extreme and powerful under his control. He shunned every advice to order Mussolini's arrest, and instead, he found a relationship with him, a man who secretly despised the monarchy and coveted its power for himself. Within a short while, their relationship blossomed, and the king appointed him as Prime Minister of Italy. In the eyes of Vittorio Emanuele III, Mussolini was the perfect person to keep the country in order because of his level of authority and control. While he thought that putting a person like Mussolini in power would reduce the chances of a civil war breaking out, it did just the opposite. The fascist dictator masterminded the involvement of Italy in World War II, a war that cost Italy all of its glory. In the years following the war, the Italian population started revolting against the monarchy, blaming the institution for its downfall and for handing over the country to a reckless leader like Mussolini. This situation created a great divide between the Italian royal house and the general public, and in 1946, the Italian institutional referendum was held. As a result of this referendum, the monarchy was abolished, and the Italian royal family was condemned to a life of exile. This happened because a hesitant and indecisive king supported and idolized a fascist and the most dangerous man in Italian history. Banishment from their homeland did not stop the Savoy's involvement in scandals. However, the scandal of perhaps the century occurred in 1978 when Prince Vittorio murdered Dirk 𝗍𝗓𝗄, a 19-year-old German. The unfortunate incident occurred in 𝗍𝐻𝐿𝐼, an island on the south coast of Corsica, France, where the prince and his wife and children lived at the time. On the night of the incident, some loud Italian tourists were partying in their yacht in a corner of the island, and the young prince was enraged by their boisterous attitude. As he stepped out of his house, he noticed that one of these tourists had taken the dinghy of his yacht and tied it to another boat on the island. A fuse went off in Vittorio's head, so the prince grabbed his rifle and started shooting blindly. According to his testimony, these shots aimed to scare off the tourists, not hurting or killing anyone. However, one can only wonder how firing blind shots in the heat of rage was the solution to restoring a stolen dinghy. Unfortunately, the shots from the prince's rifle hit another boat where the 19-year-old Dirk 𝗍𝗓𝗄 was sleeping. Although 𝗍𝗓𝗄 survived the shooting that night, the wounds he sustained from the gunshot were fatal, leading to his death 2 months later. Prince Vittorio was arrested and indicted on charges of inflicting lethal injury and the possession of a dangerous weapon. The charges were dropped a few years later, and the prince did not serve any real consequence. In fact, he still denies that this incident ever happened. As a result of this scandal, Vittorio's life was significantly altered, and his reputation was marred. However, compared to the repercussions an average person would have suffered, the prince got off with what seemed like a slap on the wrist. For the victim's family, knowing their son's murderer wasn't behind bars was too much to bear. Dirk's sister, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, spent 3 decades pushing for justice and the indictment of Prince Vittorio, all to no avail. The story resurfaced early this year when the Netflix documentary, The King Who Never Was released. It was written by Beatrice Borromeo, an Italian director who was a close family friend of the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 family. The documentary portrays the incident, the aftermath, the pursuit for justice, and the perspectives of the victim's family. In an interview, Borromeo spoke extensively on how royal privilege got in the way of the law. She said, "The system protected Vittorio Emanuele. Evidence against him disappeared. Legal opinions changed. Though he was in exile, in some way he still had power. Whether it was his royal connections, Italy's P2 Masonic Lodge, or his rapport with the Shah of Iran, it's hard to say, but a circle around him that protected him." Although the details of how Vittorio escaped justice may never see the light, many Italians and people worldwide agree that Vittorio got away with such a crime because of his royal background. This is yet another scandal with Prince Vittorio at the center. In 2006, Vittorio was exposed for being a part of a corruption and prostitution scandal, which shook Savoy's already feeble royal name. To make matters worse, the disgraced prince was incarcerated in Bethlehem Prison, a Potenza, South Italy correctional facility. This facility has held a wide caliber of criminals and law offenders, but Vittorio may have been the first royal to be locked behind bars in such a disgraceful facility. Henry John Woodcock, an Italian lawyer also based in Potenza, uncovered the case. In 2004, he began an investigation of an influence trafficking network. Woodcock was led to believe that Prince Vittorio was not only a member of this network, but also its undisputed leader. Within 2 years, he gathered incriminating evidence against the prince, such as transcripts of intercepted phone conversations and photographs of the prince taking and pocketing an envelope. Woodcock claimed that as an extension of this network, the prince is involved in scandalous acts such as procuring women and sex workers from across Europe to supply gamblers across Italy and Switzerland. After spending time behind bars, Vittorio underwent a rigorous 5-hour investigation where he was questioned about each piece of evidence. The prince allegedly admitted that the envelope contained money, but he claimed that it was a contribution to a noble order of chivalry, of which he is a Grand Master. However, he denied all the other charges. The news of the prince's incarceration was made public in 2006, and when that happened, it was as though the last shred of dignity attached to the Savoy name had been completely torn off. Vittorio's sister, Princess Maria Gabriella of Savoy, publicly stated that she no longer considered her disgraced brother a royal. In an interview with the daily newspaper, she said, "As of today, he is Mr. Savoy." It is safe to say that the prince's life has been laced with scandals and controversies, all of which damaged his reputation and his entire family. However, it is ironic that Vittorio would have been the king if the Italian monarchy still existed. One can only wonder what kind of king he would have been. Recently, the Savoy family has stayed out of misadventures and bad press. In fact, rumor has it that plans have been made to launch a royalist party to restore the Italian monarchy. Besides the legal reasons why a royal comeback is next to impossible, the Savoy name has been soiled with too many scandals and conspiracy theories to earn back the throne they lost over 70 years ago. What are your thoughts on the Savoy scandals? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.